up, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. It's your boy D Dyson. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Had a chance to go look at it, check it out last night. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the movie from start to finish. It kept me entertained. A brilliant send-off and to this trilogy. I feel like when we watched Guardians of the Galaxy 1, I personally watched it on Stars. Like, I didn't see it in the movies. It was like, at that time, a lesser Marvel movie that no one ever knew about. So I didn't think a lot of people watched it until it gained its cult following. And I feel like after that, I was like, man, I was so intrigued. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 is definitely a classic. When it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, kind of a letdown. It was lackluster from the first, but nevertheless, it was very entertaining and introduced us to a lot, especially Adam Warlock. And getting to Volume 3, that Will Poulter playing Adam Warlock, I feel like is definitely a good choice for him to play Adam Warlock. It's just, I do agree with a lot of critics and everyone else on YouTube that they didn't do enough with him, but it was just basically you had to fit him in somewhere. You know, he should have been introduced a long time ago, just like, hey, that this is who this is. So it was in a position where it was not saying that they just put him in, but they put him in, and he did fine. I just wish that he would have did a lot more in this. And it was in a position where it was bits and pieces, you know, even trying to go after Rocket. And I love this whole movie because it was centered around Rocket. Like, and from the trailer, from the teasers that we got, I just felt like everyone's going to be like, oh my God, they're all dying. And I just came in with the huge, oh my gosh, we're going to be crying because they're going to die. You know, I'm like, and I just had it in my mind, they're going to die. I'm seeing people saying they're going to die. I'm like, okay, they're going to die. And it was emotional for Rocket's backstory, but I didn't cry. It was just hurtful, you know, hurtful to watch. And that brings me to the High Evolutionary. I loved him as a villain because it was that send-off where he was very intellectual, very Thanos-like, where it's like, I'm not trying to get rid of everything, I'm just trying to make it perfect. So they had their own ideology of playing like God, where I was like, I want to make it my own. And it was Rocket that he engineered on Rocket, that Rocket was basically that missing piece to how he is. And I'm like, that, when you go back and look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, Rocket is extremely smart. Extremely. Like, he knew how to operate things. He knew how to, and you see his backstory, why he's a thief. Like, you know, and I was telling myself, I'm like, that's why he is the way he is. But he is extremely intelligent. And they downplayed it in Volume 1, like, this whole time until we understood what he really is in this one. That's why I really like this, because you've really understood what he really is. A very high intellectual being that even the High Evolutionary couldn't even understand how he got this way. So that's why this whole movie was, give me Rocket so I can get his brain, because I want his brain so I can help everything else that I'm creating to have the same brain as him. So I was like, man, it's a good backstory in a sense. And I look at it like, when it comes to Peter Quill, less of a douche in this one, more of a, you know, who he is. I remember in the beginning, like, he was just a drunk all the time. He loved Gamora because he was very trying to soak it up. And it was in a position where he didn't care about a lot of things until Adam Warlock came through, and then that's when he jumped on the gun. So that's why I was telling myself, okay, Nebula held it down per usual. I love the fact that Nebula's character and her character arc really unfolded in here, where she's been a hard ass this whole time since we met her, been mean, hard ass, and then finally at the end, when they save Rocket, you seen her real character come out and her compassion comes out, you know, because it took Mantis to kind of really go off. And same thing with Mantis. Mantis played the soft character, and it finally came out of how she needed to be. Same thing with Drax. It's just everything in this was a culmination building up, and I loved it. James Gunn did a wonderful job with this. And I just feel like even with the High Evolutionary, I felt like I wanted more from him. You know, in the second half of the movie, he was always screaming like how all these tyrants be. He's just, no, get him. Versus in the beginning where he was just kind of like that, don't play with me. You know, I'll do this and do that. And he was very strong. So you didn't get to see where his power comes from. Like, and that's why I was trying to like, where does his intellect and his power come from? They never touched on that. Like, he doesn't really have a backstory. I would have loved his backstory. But in a sense where it was focused on Rocket, and I understood why, especially when he clawed him up. He kind of looked like Red Skull when he, you know, Rocket really did damage to his face. And I was kind of like, it makes sense. You know, a lot of this really did make sense. When it comes to Gamora, I didn't like Gamora in this, but I understood that she was more ravenous. Like when they pulled her from Endgame, you know, it was Gamora in her prime where she's just, I don't give a damn, killing everything. She was a real assassin. Versus the Gamora that we saw in Guardians of the Galaxy where she grew up. She was more compassionate. That's why she fell in love with Peter Quill. So in this one, she felt like I'm more murderous in this one. So she didn't really have that fit in with the Guardians this time. And I love that they played that. Do they get back together? Do they not? And they end up not getting back together, which it was done right. Because like I said, she's from the past. You don't know Peter Quill. She don't care for him like that. So they should never got back together. And they did that right. Now, the last send-off, as far as when you've seen all the Guardians work together and fighting in the corridor, marvelous, marvelous Marvel cinema. When they're all fighting, you all get to see how they're all just working together. They're all doing their signature moves. They're all just doing what they do as a team. And that was the last time you're going to see them really fighting together. I love that. And perfect CGI, perfect stunt choreography, all of it. It was beautiful to watch. And that's why I was telling myself, yeah. And even at the tail end of it, when they're all going their separate ways and there's no more Guardians, and Rocket was like, you know, I felt so bad for Rocket because Rocket always longed for a family. And now they finally make Rocket, you know, the leader. And I just loved how he saved everything. And then he saw what it was like raccoon, you know, so I loved it. And it said raccoon. So he's like, I'm Rocket Raccoon. I loved it. I give this a 10 out of 10. I really do. This is a really good Marvel movie to watch. Really good. So, you guys enjoyed my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Subscribe to my channel. Post a comment down below. Like the video. It's your boy, D Dyson. Peace.